2-hour setup. Yeah. Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out. My name is Joanne Healy. I'm the director of the Lock House Museum. Thank you for coming. This is a free lecture, part of the Shank Lecture Series, and we are part of the Greater Hadley Grace Museum Association that puts these on. I just have a couple of little notes. The Lock House Museum is open today for any of you people who've never been there. The hours today are 1:30 to 5. So, and the maps, we did bring the profile maps. They're on a table back here. They'll be leaving at the end of the session here and going back to the museum. So if you really want to go look at them, they'll be in the museum this afternoon. There are also some openings for lunch. If anybody really wants to join us, just come see me after. Also, there is a little tiny donation jar up there on the table. If anybody wants to help contribute to offset the cost of our free lunch, which is not free. All right, so many of you probably know Jay, Chip, and Dennis, or follow the Susquehanna Ramblers on Facebook. I enjoy Jay's posts. You know, there's something endearing about your writing. I think it's because it's just so authentic, and it's entertaining and chock full of information. So if anybody wants to follow them, you can learn a lot. We met these guys a few years ago, and after we started talking, we decided to have this gathering at the Lock House, and it was about a dozen people, and they were all of like-minded people, all amateur, local, casual historians with an affinity of trying to find more out about the Susquehanna and Tidewater Canal. And there are a couple of that original group here today, and I'm glad you could all come out. So with that, I'm just going to hand this over. This is the debut public speaking world debut. So, all right?
Good morning. My name is Jay Mackley. For the people in the back of the room, I got a couple hand signals for you. If you can't hear me, give me a thumbs up like that. That's increased the value. Okay? That's a decrease, but we won't use that today. It's a 4-hour talk. I'm going to try to put it in 45 minutes. I'm going to be talking real fast.
You've already done it
I learned this from a friend. Hold up 2 fingers, okay? Increase the volume back here. So I'm here today with my 2 buddies who ran from River Hill, Dennis Brooks and Chip Fulmer. We traveled all up and down the river from Ferry Point, Gristmill down there up to the White Cliffs of Kenoi. We covered the whole lock, the whole canal lock from Wrightsville to Howey Grace. Through that, we discovered 17 different locks, or the remains of the locks. So what we're talking about today is the profile maps. And she has some over here, but that's the main talk today. We're not experts. Good, you can hear me. We're not experts, but if the best way to describe this, if you can picture a big body of water, big lake, that's what we are. But we're only this deep. So. But I'm really thrilled and excited to be talking to you people today because very seldom I get a room full of gungoozlers. And somebody said here, what's a gungoozler? That's a British term. And what it means is is a person who harbors an interest in canals and canal locks. I mean, canals and canal life, but does not actively get involved in it. And I figure if you're here, you want to hear about canals. I myself graduated, I used to be a gun goozler, but I graduated to anorak. It's two meanings for anorak. Anorak is a jacket you pull over and put a hood up. But the other meaning is a very strong interest in perhaps an obsessive subject. A person who is extremely enthusiastic and interested in something that other people find boring. So this I'm glad to have a whole room full of Gonzalo. Yeah, she's. I'll show you why. Why? Next. This is me at a normal party. Normally with 30 people, or 20, 30 people at the party, they're hanging around the back of the house trying to stay clear of me because they don't want to hear no canal talk. Now my wife, every day, I shouldn't tell you this, but my wife, every day at 2 o'clock, she takes a nap, okay? 15, 20-minute nap. And she can't fall asleep, she'll tell me, Jay, pull a chair up and talk me out. And she's out cold within 2-3 minutes. What I'm going to do today, I'm going to put things up here to keep you involved, and we're going to go through a few things, and you're going to participate. So, next. This is a profile map, an early profile map of CFJ drew up between 1836 to 1840, and shows the canal above, and shows the canal locks down below there. Next. Look at the smile on that guy, huh? That's the profile map. The book of the profile maps, enough things measure about 3 foot. The original measured about 3 foot long, 2 foot high. And the book weighs 20, 25 pounds. And I was first introduced to them, I guess about 4 or 5 years ago, I can't remember when. A fellow by the name of Ben Weber, I saw some of my posts, and he said, Jay, would you like to have, I can send you JPEGs of all the maps. And I said, that'd be great, Ben, but what the hell are you? And he said, well, when you give it credit for it, just give our name as the source. I said, man, I'd be glad to do that. But what happened after I got his JPEGs, about 2 days later I went through and I realized I was missing map 37 and map 68. And I didn't want to bug the guy. He lent me all these JPEGs, I didn't want to bug him. So I called Dennis, I said, Ben lent me all these maps, but I'm missing two. And Dennis said, well, I got them. He said, why didn't you say something? I said, well, I didn't know you had them. He said, well, I'll give you mine. But he said, I don't have page map 68. He said, I can fill in 37. So what I'm doing now is making a public announcement. I never gave credit to Benton or Dennis. And so today I'm coming out saying that all the maps I can use from Benton and from Dennis. Next. What we're going to talk about today, how did we discover the year the maps were drawn? What counties did the canal run through? Why do the maps vary in design? Were all the locks composite locks? What was the purpose of the survey and the making of the maps? And how many miles is the Susquehanna Tidewater Canal? And where is map 68? Dennis didn't have 68, Benton didn't have 68, and everybody's been asking where's 68. We're going to solve that today. Since I only have 45 minutes, we're going to get number 2 and number 6 out of the way. Does anybody know what counties the canal ran through? Raise your hand. Yes.
Hartford and York.
Hartford and York. Another hand.
Hartford and York.
Hartford and York.
Hartford and York?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to write it down. I don't have time to write it down, but remember that, Hartford and York. And by the way, you two shouted that out, the two women, it sounds like you have a Hartford accent, okay? You're from Hartford County? Okay, and the way you said it, now, if you're from York County, you would have said York and Hartford. Or you say Hartford and York. We got that out of the way. Number 6, how many miles of the Susquehanna Tidewater Canal? Does anybody know that answer?
45.
43, 45,
41.
41.
42, 44.
Who said 44? 44. Hang on.
45.
Survey says.
If those signs aren't always accurate. I can assure you of that.
I can't find my paper. Hang on. I got 41, 43, 45. The fellow up front here said 43, he has a Hartford accent. Are you from Hartford County?
Yes.
Okay, see, there you go.
Jay,
Yes,
clarifying question.
yes.
Does the Susquehanna Tidewater Canal include crossing the Susquehanna at Columbia? Yes or no?
I'll get to that.
I gotta know that in order to answer number 6.
Well, I'm not gonna have you answer that because I'm afraid you know the answer. Okay? He measured, when they surveyed, they measured from Columbia over. But the canal itself actually runs from Wrightsville to Havre de Grace. But just for your sake, let's say, yes, it includes Columbia. How many miles?
I would go with 44.
Here's somebody who read his books. We got 41, 43, 44, and 45. You have a Lancaster accent.
Yeah.
You Dutchified. Are you from Lancaster?
Not originally, no.
Okay, here we go. Next. Now, that first map I showed you, that E.F. Gay Road, that was on the notes on the left-hand corner. I don't know if you noticed it. Length of the canal is 45 miles with a surface of 50 feet, depth of water 5 feet, blockage 233 feet. But they're talking about the 233 feet. From Wrightsville to Havre de Grace, it drops 233 feet. It has 29 lift locks and 2 guard locks. That's wrong. It has 29 locks. 2 of them are guard locks. So it's 29 total. All locks are constructed with double chamber and will admit the passage of 2 boats, each 85 feet long, at the same time a long ramp 170 feet by 16 feet. So I'm not sure Jay put that on the corner of his map. There's too many errors on that.
This was an early plan though, right?
It's an early plan.
So before it was built, that's what he intended to do.
Well, okay. I think he would have just had 29 locks. 2 of them are guard locks. Next. How did we discover the year the maps were drawn? This is going to be long and drawn out, but I'm going to go through it quick. I heard different years when it was drawn. I heard 1897, the maps were drawn in 1897. And you hear a lot of people quote when there was a major flood and there's over 500 CFC, water coming down, CFS, water coming down, like 1888, 1884, 1880, 91. So we looked into it, and Dennis noticed on this drawing here, chart 23, in this area here, this is York Furnace. In this area here, there's a big 2-structured building built, warehouse. And that was built in 1879. So the drawings had to be between 1872 when the Philadelphia Reading Company leased the canal to 1879. So we narrowed it down to 7 years. Next.
Yeah, this is the top 1 plot, but it's not on the map.
And that building's still standing today, right here.
Yeah.
And there's a story, go back to that one real quick. This here is the toll house for a bridge that went across there in 1856. and it only lasted 2 years. And when this guy built this building in 1879, it was a fight between him and the Black and Hubert that built the bridge over money or something. So he built his structure here, 2-story, to block his summer view. Next, there's the bridge. Bridge piers. Right here is the 2-story structure that wasn't on the maps. So we knew that the maps were drawn before 1879.
Jay, was that the Bar Bridge?
No, that was Black and Hubert building in 1856. Back here's the building. Here's the Waylock at York Furnace. Here's the hotel and the store. They had lime kilns over here. A fella, the weighmaster was Charles Gibbs. He was the weighmaster for 28 years. Him and his family lived up here. He had 5 children. They lived in that place. One of the records, one of the heaviest boats that ever came through there. I'm gonna ask you, Ben, what do you think it weighed in at? The heaviest load.
90?
The total of boat and cargo was 164 tons. And that was back in October 1868. A not normal canal boat weighs around 30 tons. So the cargo was 132 tons. That's at an all-time record.
Yeah.
Next.
A cargo of what?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's coal. I don't know if I have the article. I'm not sure if it's coal or what it was. I think coal would have been a little light for 130.
Maybe iron and anthracite, remember?
Could have been iron ore.
Well,
Now this is the same building. I want to show you how big this building was compared to the barn right next to it. They're on Bear Island here, Canal ran right through here. Next. Now this is an 1870 report. When I first got into research, then it showed me how to do newspaper.com, and I get up every morning with my iPad and I'd sit in my easy chair and I'd go down to the toll house down in Wrightsville and I'd go scroll through these in my living room. And I found them interesting. You'd have 251 boats, through boats, and that's from Wrightsville to Haverty Grace, 18 that went intermediate between Wrightsville and Haverty Grace. There's a total of 269. 135 were lumber, you had grain, lime, bark, pig iron, a packet boat, and a coal boat. Next. And if I get bored with Wrightsville, I go down to Haverty Grace and check out their report. They had 150 depart, arrived, and 114 boats departed. That's in 1 week. And I want to tell you something. I want to give you a metaphor here in research, my experience. When you do research, everybody thinks you pick out a big book and start reading, you get all the answers. It never works that way. It reminds me if you're out in the wilderness and you have no lighter or no match and you've got to start a fire. You get some tinder together, get a spark going, you blow on it, get a little fire going, put some kindling on it, then put bigger branches and logs and you got rip roar. And the reason I bring that up, next, when I was down Haverty Grace, going through the reports, I discovered this little article. It was mixed in. And that was about 3-4 years ago. And I haven't found it since. I don't know what word I used. Dennis always says, write down everything that you do. That way you can come back to it. But I never found this. The engineering corps in charge, assisting engineer William Deschamps, finished survey of the Tidewater Canal in 1875. It was first printed in Elkton Democrat newspaper. He just put it out in 1875. So we know from that little piece of paper, the timeline would be from 1872 to 1875. So we narrowed it down 2 years. The guy that was the head of it was William Deschamps, that's a French name. And here's where you guys come in. It's 2 syllables, and the French, they pronounce the second syllable as a nasal thing, so say Deschamps. Deschamps. And 3, everybody say Deschamps. That's beautiful. Deschamps. Next. So I sent that off to Dennis. I got all hyped. And I actually, when I sent this off to Dennis, I could hear the door slam on my rabbit hole. I knew I was going from Gungoozler to Anorak at that time. And Dennis right away, he got all excited, and he sent this back. It's the history of Reading and Berks County, Volume 3, 1925. And Deschamps, in 1875, made a survey of the Susquehanna Canal from Columbia to Haverty Bridge. So that should have answered one question there. So we narrowed it down, the timeline, we narrowed it down to 1875. Now, we didn't know January to July. We didn't know how long. 45 miles. How long would it take you to walk 45 miles surveying? 3 months, 4 months?
Those river notes? Easy.
No, it was all flat land. It was all flat. So that thing was my spark. We discovered, we found a picture of Deschamps. 1875 when he did the survey, he was 24 years old. Handsome guy. So Dennis made a recommendation. He said, what we should do is go up to Harrisburg and go through the archives. And Chip and I were never in the archives before. We never did any kind of research like that. And we were excited about it. We came up with this huge list of things we wanted to see. And I came up, I wanted to see photographs. So I go to Harrisburg, I want to see photographs. Dennis, I forget what Chip wanted. But Dennis wanted to see toll and revenue log books, engineering log books, toll house log books, Schuylkill Navigation Company records, diaries and journals from 1873 to 1888. They literally willed out 3 carts. But that morning, I knew I was going to have the most fun with my photographs. I probably wouldn't learn too much. Dennis pulled this out, and after about 2 hours of going through the records, he pulled out the following. And that is the notes and diary of the Susquehanna Canal Survey begun May the 17th, 1875, and it finished July the 22nd, 18. That's the timeline. We got it right there. The number of whole working days in which we worked was 44 days. Okay. And so they spent a total, if you figure it out, they spent a total of 66 days on the canal that day. Next. This is the first page of the diary, and I transferred it over, transcribed it, and I'm going to read a little bit to you. The survey of Susquehanna Canal in contemplation for a year or more since its lease was built up in the Reading Railroad Company. There being no map in the working existence, according to 17th, the following party was stated to make the survey. William Deschamps. I'm doing this for your good so you don't fall asleep. Deschamps. His brother Calvin Deschamps. Okay, we're going to skip down here. Wilson showed up a day later. Columbia Bridge, after dinner, they measured the Columbia Bridge. The general impression that the bridge is 1 mile and a quarter long, but we found it to be 5,366 feet. But down here, the Schuylkill paved boat to be used for boarding the party arrived at noon today, and Joseph Spence took charge of the cook, as cook. We ate supper in that evening. Joseph Smith probably took care of the mules also. That boat came out of Reading on the Schuylkill. They came across the Union Canal down the Pennsylvania Canal and came over to these Susquehanna Canal. Hang on 1 second, Dennis. I gotta keep these people awake. No, don't get them. Don't, please. That was just to wake everybody up, that's nothing. That's not a canal boat, I just, it might be an ark, river ark, it's an early one, but I figure I'd do that to keep everybody alert. Okay, next page. What counties did the canal run through? We already talked about that, right? Hartford, York, and Hartford. Go ahead, next. The 2 slab levels were built in the river, and they are wide and deep and lay partly in Lancaster County. So canal ran through York, Lancaster, and Hartford County. Next map. Here's Peabody Island. Part of this is here, not much. This wall here is still here, and it rained down on the west side of Peabody. The dams are still here. When we explored this area, you can still see some log cribbing in there and some metal. A lot of this is still here. That's all stonework. That's still here. When I was a kid, there was a waste weir here, maybe 6 foot wide, that we bring our boat through. I don't have it on here, but right here. And I didn't know what it was. I wasn't a gun goozler then, but I wish I would have been. But it did run about a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile on the Lancaster shoreline. So there, we answered that question.
So Lancaster crosses the river.
The Lancaster, when they surveyed Pennsylvania, the shoreline, the Lancaster shoreline comes right to the York side, okay? And Cecil and Hartford, the boundary line is dead center of the river. But up our way, it comes all the way over to York County side. So you had, and you can still see the towpath on Peabody Island today. There's Lock 14, go ahead. One thing we discovered with these maps, they vary in design a lot. And it's hard to figure it out. When we first got them, without the notes, you couldn't figure them out. And you can go to the next one, Dennis. The Lock 13, if you look at Lock 14 here, Lock 4, in Pennsylvania, the locks are numbered 1 through 19. And in Maryland, right across the line, they started from 1 to 10. Okay, but back in them days, they didn't go by numbers, they went by the lockmaster name, last name. Now, if you notice this one here, they don't have the center gates drawn in. And you assume that the guy figured, well, you figure it out, it had a center gate. We went down Tuesday and we found the location for this thing. That's some stone there yet. It's a hotel at Bridgeville. Next. So you get to Lock 6, and they didn't put the recess in it. See the recess here? So he stopped putting the recess in, and you figure, well, I guess the people will figure it out that you had to have a recess in gates, you know, but I just don't bother, I won't bother drawing them. I want you to notice a lot of these have the lock house, and they have the fence going around to the garden, and most of the maps, you'll see that. That was like an extra stipend for the people. The lockmaster made 15 a month, 180 a year, and I guess they gave them a plot of land with a fence around it. Next. boats, lock 6, kept by Isaac Boritsky, a stone wall line, was rebuilt in 1872 and has no recess in the center. So that's telling you that no recess, no center gate. And so it's just one big chamber. Next. But then we get down to Muddy Creek. Lock 15 is called the Wilderness Lock, was rebuilt retaining center recess, but it was useless. So what the shop was telling us there, that they rebuilt the thing, and they built it with the center gates, lock gates, but they were useless. Now you go back one, Dennis, I want to show them something. I want to read this here. The old dam across the river at Lockport was torn out by ice and spring floods in 1865, but was not entirely abandoned until 1867. So they stopped sending the canal boats across the river in 1867 at Lockport. They would take them over to the Conestoga River, and then the canal boats would go over to Lancaster. That stopped in 1867. Next. And we found the answer why they stopped using the center gates. I fell up in Swatara Creek, at Port Royal, right in Middletown, had a thriving boat yard up there, and he came up with this invention to couple two boats together. But when he first came out with the invention, he had the windlass horizontal and the wheels vertical. So that meant if you got your car, rather than hold your hands at 10 and 2, the wheel was like this, you had to turn it this way. On the boat, you turn it 4 1/2. So in April, he came out, April 72, he came out where he put the windlass vertical and the wheel horizontal like in a car. And from there on, and like on the maps, from Lock 9, you never seen any gates at all. They didn't bother putting them in. But when he came up with that, the center gates were useless. Next. And he's talking about little sparks. Maybe this might spark somebody in here. A lady in York, Stella Eby, when Smelter did his book in '63, he found out that she had the original boats that he used for a patent, that McCurry used for a patent. And it'd be great to find the location of them boats, if somebody wants to trace them down. But also here, the left 1/8 of an inch equals a foot, 94 feet. That would have made them too long. So we got to find the boats to remeasure. Next. Now here, two boats coupled through into Pennsylvania Canal boat number 170. They're at the Conowingo Lake. I want to point out a few things here. When they did this, they could haul twice as much coal, same amount of crew members. Here's the driver, probably a young fella. The driver led the mules. I want you to notice here the balance beam on the north gate, the balance beam on the south gate, but there's no center gate. And here you have a wooden sill going the whole way back through. That will come up later. But being a anorak as I am, here, show this down here, Dennis. Here they have four mules. So when they doubled up on the mules. You can tell this is Conowingo. You see them stones here? They're not painted white, they're quartz. That was a good area for mining quartz and flint down that area. And today, you go down right above this area, there's a wall down there, maybe 100 feet, winding up the hill to the guy's cabin. That's still there today. That's a great photo. Were all the locks composite locks? Were all the locks composite locks? No, were all the locks. Were all the locks composite locks?
No,
How many were?
I couldn't say.
Pardon?
I don't know.
Well, at least one is.
You might want to tell people
do this. Composite locks. Hang on. I'm getting ahead of my notes. Anyway, this is a lock tenant down at the museum. It's all made out of smooth stone, and I call it ashlar masonry. It's all smooth stone. The reason I brought up about the composite locks, usually you hear from people that the Maryland locks, the Tidewater Canal locks were all masonry like this, and the locks in Pennsylvania were all composite locks. Now, a composite lock, look, next. What they did with a composite lock, I use this photo for two reasons. The first reason, I want to tell you what a composite lock is. You see these grooves in the stone? They would anchor vertical logs in there, posts 6 by 6, and then they would cover it with wooden planking, horizontal wooden planking. And then the coping stone up here, they would set back and put a wooden seal in it. And the second reason I use this was that Latin, now lock 9. Next. Here you can see the grooves better. Here it has a piece of original wood. This lock had 2 pieces of original wood. They would treat the wood. They call it kyanizing. It was a mercury chloride solution they would dip the wood in. And here's some of the metal that held these posts. Next. Here's how they held the vertical. They'd run that pin in, and then when they had to work on it, they could just keep the pin out. Here's some other posts, some other metal. I wanted to show you the metal and how they fasten it. This is from lock 7, lock 12. This is from lock 7. Next. Here you can see the horizontal planking, the wood sealed, coping stone sit back. Next. And here's the seal. And the reason I bring this up about the composite, a lot of times you hear people say, well, all the Maryland locks were ashlar masonry. And I think that came from a fellow by the name of Ralph Singer in 1968, wrote a thesis on the canal. And the book's gold. It's a beautiful book, but he had one little mistake in the whole thing. And on page 17, the locks in Pennsylvania section were known as composite locks. Their name was derived from the particular type of construction in which the interiors were lined with horizontal wooden planking rather than merely being faced in stone. On the Maryland section of the canal, the locks were faced with smooth stone and not lined with planking. Next. So what they did, and I think where the confusion comes in with composite locks and smooth stone locks, in 1873-74, in Lock 8, they made plain chambers with stone coping. But also in that same year, 1873 and 74, they also did the same thing with Tidewater Canal Lock 4 and 7. So now you had 4 locks in Maryland that were smooth stone, not composite. Here's Lock 8. You can see the stone coping there. So I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in with the composite and the smooth stone. What was the purpose of surveying making the maps? Don't yell it out. No, wait, let me catch you. Don't yell it out. My friend Ben Weber came up with the idea that the survey and the Brooklyn maps were for building a railroad. And we set out to prove him right. I think we set out to prove him right. I don't know. So I want to go over these maps with you. This is Wrightsville. Now, Benton brought up earlier about that they measured the bridge. Well, they measured, when they did the survey, they measured from Columbia over. But keep in mind, this bridge had railroad tracks, it's Pennsylvania Railroad going across here. There was no need to measure that bridge. I mean, if they were making maps of the canal, why did they measure the bridge with Pennsylvania Railroad tracks coming across? But when they measured the town, in his notes, they said they measured between Front Street and the canal, which I literally thought they measured here. But they measured up, came across, they measured up this way. Can you take it up here just a little bit? And you can see that the red line runs off the map here. And up here, there was lime kilns. There's 12 today that still exist in the big lime kiln section. And then they measured down Front Street. I mean, if they're doing maps of the canal, why would they measure down Front Street? But they all show the railroad tracks coming into all these different buildings. There's sawmills, warehouses. Here's a toll house in Wrightsville, Canal Basin. Next map. Here's the south end of Wrightsville. They measured across the bridge. Keep in mind, the canal's here. They measured up here, and they run the line right off. Right over here is a great big huge quarry, limestone quarry. The quarry's still here. So it seems like they're a good way off the canal from making maps of the canal. Next one. They get down to Otter Creek. They measure up 900 feet. They measure up to this dam, this dam. There's a wooden head race here for the feed the furnace. And to check on that dam and that dam to measure up to there, when the early railroads, I never got into that rabbit hole. When they across the river they had a railroad. About every 5 miles they had water tanks for the locomotives. So the railroad needed water. They needed plenty of water for their locomotives. Another point I want to make here is while we're going down through here, keep in mind that noise that you're hearing, the dynamite and the hammering, they're building the railroad on the east side of the river. At the same time they're measuring in 1875, they're building the railroad on the other side of the river.
Jay, you have about 15 minutes.
Okay, real fast, 15 minutes, go ahead. This is Muddy Creek. They measured up to the public road, not 800 feet. Canal's here, 800 feet up here, go ahead. Peach Bottom, measured off the map again. They got the sawmill. Here's a mill race at the dam up here. They wanted to get water for the dam. Peach Bottom had a lot of slate going out, and they had a lot of business right here. Next one. Yakwood, this is Frog Creek. Now, in his notes, they said 1,100 feet. Here they're up to 1,261 feet, and the line goes off. And there's a green marble quarry up here. And there's a lot of flint quarries in here, and furnaces. And if they're measuring this, why go way up here? Unless they're gonna run a sidetrack up off the railroad. Deer Creek, the same way, several hundred feet past the mill here. They come up to the county road. But also, here's a mill race with a dam. They need water. Okay, go ahead. What we're gonna do, we're gonna get off this railroad crap now, but we'll come back on it, okay? What Benton did, he talked to the power company. The book was stored, the profile map book was stored down at St. Harbor Dam for years and years, and Benton went down and had every map scanned and made JPEGs and PDFs off of that. And before he took it to Harrisburg, he invited the Ramblers up to look at it. And he let me hold the thing up. So I was thrilled with it. But he said, come up, look at it, and we got all excited over here. It was like Christmas for us. catch up my notes.
So the maps are in Harrisburg now?
Pardon?
Where are they today?
They were, now, well, what happened was, he talked the power company into gifting the maps to the archives in Harrisburg. This is the new archives building, and this is the gift acceptance ceremony, and we're invited to it. Here's Kurt Bell, I forget this guy's name, that's Jonathan Rhodes for the power company, Amy Burnett for the power company, and that's Benton holding the book, and that's me and Chip photobombing the thing. But he told them, you know, you put it in Harrisburg, they'll digitize the thing, it'll be climate controlled, and it'll be stored fireproof, it'll be kept forever. Where it was stored down Safe Harbor, there wasn't any of that. This is William DeShant's old bed. And this will be the last time I ask you people to say DeShant, okay? On three. 1, 2, 3. DeShant. More nasal. DeShant. This will be the last time, okay? I promise you that. We're sitting, my wife and I have a policy back there, Dennis. When we eat dinner, no phones or iPads at the table. It's not a hard thing. The grandkids is pretty hard. And I'm sitting there at the dinner table and my phone starts vibrating. And I pretend I'm adjusting my napkin. I look down at my phone and it's Benton Weber. And I look across the table and I said, look, I gotta answer this. This man's at work, it gotta be something super important. I gotta answer it. So I pick the phone up, put it in my ear, and he yells, Deccan. I said, what? Deccan. I said, I hear what you're saying, but I don't understand what you're saying. His name isn't DeShant, it's Deccan. It's William Deccan. So you can forget all the French you learned here. William Deccan. So I said, how do you know that, Ben? And he said his grandson, he gave the book to Harrisburg, he transferred the book, they had a big newspaper article, and his grandson read this. I said, well, it could have been his grandson. He said, it's his grandson. And besides that, Jay, he has a journal, one page out of his personal journal when he was on that trip. I said, you gotta be kidding me, this is his personal journal. And being an anorak, I couldn't leave it go at that. So I went back, it was dated Thursday, June the 10th, and I went in his work journal, looked it up, and his work journal, June 10th, go ahead, next one. So his work journal ran cross-section from below Smelter's Locket to about 1,000 feet below Rollers Ferry in the morning to continue transit line to Otter Creek, 900 feet up the creek to the second dam. The bridge across the canal, Shanks Ferry, is an old bridge, had small repairs done last summer. Urie's Farm Bridge was rebuilt in spring 1873. The woodwork at Otter Creek Aqueduct was renewed in the winter of 1873. The tops of the stone piers are pretty badly shattered. That's his work journal. Here's his personal page for the same day. We worked from above Shanks Ferry to Otter Creek today. This is, I think, one of the nicest levels on the Susquehanna Canal that I have met. Here's a 24-year-old man. The nicest levels in the Susquehanna Canal that I've ever met. You know, it sounds like he just met his lifelong partner. And about a mile below Shanks Ferry, there's a high point of rocks called the Pinnacle. And it's more than 100 feet high, and in special places near the top, there is an old eagle's nest said by an old resident to have been occupying an eagle up to the time of the building of the canal, but the noise and confusion connected with the construction of the canal drove them off. The nest looks like a heap of sticks leaves, must be 50 years old. Otter Creek is quite a picturesque place. There is an aqueduct, a public road, sawmill, old furnace, and 2 mill dams. I just couldn't believe that. I had to see why this is the nicest canal level that you have ever met. So I go back to this page, next. Down here at the bottom, he drew the aqueduct, the canal, the aqueduct, the country road, the covered bridge. The old furnace here, York Furnace, it was called the Spec, the sawmill. Go ahead, Dennis. This is an early photograph of the aqueduct. This is 1897, the canal runs here. And the aqueduct's still there. The aqueduct was built out of wood with stone pillars. Next. Here's the pillars right here. This is the abutment. Here's the pier. We were down the other day, I think it was Thursday. Some of this is still here. None of this, but on the other side, there's still stonework. This photo is from 1907. Next. Same location, okay?
Where did you find those photos?
They're from York History, Robert C. Bear photo albums, okay? Here's the two center piers in his work journal. They were shattered on top. Here's the abutment. Like I said, the abutment's still there. Next photo. Now here's the part where you gotta understand when he said this nicest level I ever met. This is the pinnacle he was talking about. It's Eagle's Nest Pinnacle right here. This photo is from 1910. Next one. Here's the Eagle's Nest Pinnacle. Read that, Dennis? Right there. Precipitous base, the wall around, the high wall around the precipitous base around here. Next one. Now here's the high wall. This thing's 25 to 30 feet, we're estimating. The canal boats would have been up here. When this man got in Lock 8, he was on a sky ride in Disney World. From Lock 8 the whole way down, they were up 20, 25 feet. And there was a newspaper article when he came out of Lock 8, not him, but there was a young minister coming up from a convention in Baltimore, and he's riding his horse, and at Lock 8, his horse reared up, and he fell down over the embankment. They said it was 60 feet high. Now, we went up and looked at it, and we estimated 25, 30, but we have water underneath us from the dam. But can you imagine riding a canal boat up this high? It was just like a sky ride. That's why the man fell in love with it.
So Jay, is that close to the Yorkside Shanks Ferry? Is that where-
Yeah, it is, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You'll find stonework, but the stonework today, here, Dennis, put some color in it. You'll find this much stonework still there. And you were up at Lock 7 already. Some of them walls are 10, 15 feet high.
Well, most of that's underwater now, right?
Pardon?
The river's under, You're
The
behind.
river's right up to here.
yeah, that's what I thought.
So some of the stonework's still there, but I mean, I can't imagine being up that high.
Jay, we have 6 minutes.
Okay, go ahead, go quick. Okay, back to, why did they do it? Benton said for the railroad. Here, when they got down to the basin of Happy Grace, you had different ice houses. They surveyed all the ice houses. There was a newspaper article in the late 1870s where a guy started shipping his ice by train rather than canal boats. The whole time that they're working, they could hear the explosions on the other side of the river where they're putting in the train tracks on the other side. Hang on, let me catch up with my notes. Okay, next one. How many miles of Susquehanna Tidewater? Where is map 68? We got a lot of stuff. Three things answered here out of the 7, right here. Bent was right. They were surveying to put a railroad in. The whole time on the other side, when they surveyed the other side for the railroad, they had to do it in the winter months, okay? because the promontories came out to the river and dropped, and they're 50, 100 feet high. They had to do it in the winter months. They used rope ladders, they had to walk around them things on the ice in the river. Okay, it was just solid rock down through. Next one. But I'm getting back to the railroad thing. All they had to do on this side with the canal, just fill the canal in, run tracks. All the industry was there. A lot of commerce there. On our side, we had lime kilns, sawmills, flint mills, bark mills, green marble, peach mine. We had a ton of slate coming down the river. You had stores, you had hotels, a lot of hotels on our side. Everything was there. All they had to do was put tracks in, and they were ready to rock and roll. You know, on the other side, they finished the tracks. This survey is 1875. They finished the tracks in 1877. That railroad, maybe 2 years later. They could have ran the tracks in half a year now. You'll find this twice in his notes. Finished cross measuring 2, cavity grace outlet lock number 10. To the lock. Next one. If you look here, the line stops here. Don't do no farther, it stops dead here. There's 223,165 feet, 42 and 0.27 miles. Now, if you go down to the very bottom of this, Dennis, if there is a bottom, see this here? That's where it's coming into the canal, right above the canal. Did anybody say 42? If you had 400 feet to this, take it to the south end of the lock, it would have been 42.3 miles. That's how long the canal was. Next one. This is it. That's where they stored the book at Safe Harbor. Now you have a piece of paper and a tiny little thumb drive in it. Now, hang on. How many minutes do I have, Dennis?
You have 2.
2 minutes. I love that picture. Here's an oil painting, and I should have put these up early, but you people were wide awake, so I didn't bother with it.
Interact, so.
And he's hanging around after the talk, I'm giving out autographs. But before I leave,
Here, Jay, put it right here if you like.
no, that's all right, they're tired of looking at me anyhow. Before I leave, I want to give a spark, and maybe somebody in this room will follow up on it, okay? And that's all it is with research, just a little spark. Okay, next one. And this is a plaque of lock, the Tidewater Lock 10. Here's the lock house. If you look at all this red, this is what the canal company owns, okay? And I'm going to tell you how to go about this spark. If you go in and check these lots, there's some lots that are vacant, okay? And if you go into the courthouse on your computer, you don't have to run into it. You can check when these lots were sold. Go to the next one. Some of the lots are sold, some are still vacant. These are almost sold. And go back. Here's the spark. See these 3 gates? Go back to the next one. Here they got 4 gates. And you might be able to find out when the 4th gate was put in, okay? Once you find that out, you might find why they put it in. I have an idea, but I didn't tell them all. When I showed you the valley, I showed you the sharp corner. They stopped about right here. So I added 400 feet from here to here to make it 42 1/3 miles. So there's your spark. That's the end of the talk. Anybody have any questions?
Why did they not survey and make blueprints before they built the canal? I mean, that's...
Well, they did. Yeah, that first one I showed you, CFD had a profile map of the whole thing, plus the mileage. plus the lockage. We had everything on that one piece.
Edward Gay.
Evergate.
And they would have done a lot, they would have done a lot of field engineering. They wouldn't have drawn it to the same detail as what you're having here.
And when was that wrong?
1836 to 1840.
They did it, they engineered it while they were building it.
Yeah.
Jay, did you answer the question about what happened to map 68?
Oh, map 68, there is no map 68, I'm sorry, there is no map 68. They stopped, they're back a couple.
That's where the secret headquarters is.
They stopped right here. They stopped measuring right here, they weren't interested, you couldn't take a railroad out past Block 10 into the bay. I'm sorry about that, yeah, I didn't answer it. They stopped right here, and they weren't interested in that block. Here for a lifetime, for the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a group of people, anoraks, looking for map 68. There is no 68. I hate to break the news to you. There is no 68. But I'll tell you, go ahead.
How old were you when you discovered your passion for this lot, these lots?
About 74. I was a normal person up to about and now, my yoga teacher described why we walk like this, because we're sitting there with our iPads like this. And my wife said, "You're right." I see my husband, that's how I picture my husband, with his laptop looking at me. I was normal at about 74. I felt that. But there is no 68. So I hate to break that news to you. The maps were drawn to run a railroad. You know, it's just all bad news. It wasn't 45 houses, 42.3. I looked at my paper, nobody had it right.
And what sparked your curiosity about this?
I lived, we had a home 10 feet away. I don't, well, I tell you what, the one rambler, I'm at my place I have a cottage, I had a cottage on the island, the one rambler pulled up. I haven't seen the man in 40 years. And I recognized him and his father. And he had an interest, and that's how we got our name, Susquehanna Ramblers. And we're talking, he said, "I ramble the river hills." I said, "What for?" He said, "Well, I look for different foundations and stuff." So that's how we came up with Susquehanna Ramblers. We don't call it hiking, we call it rambling. And then we bumped into him. And the reason I bumped into him, I did an article on a tavern that a historian in 1907 wrote on York County, and he was talking about Slate Tavern. And I said in my post on Facebook about Slate Tavern, and he said, "I think you're wrong. I think he meant Slap Tavern." And what was the historian from York?
Gibson or?
Proud, George Proud. George Proud's History of York County. So he came back and said, "I think they're wrong on this." I said, "No, George Proud in his book, 1907, The York History, said that the Slate Tavern in Lancaster County." And he was back and forth with me, and I realized this is the first person that ever read my post. And I said, "Pound, I gotta meet you." So I said, "We're gonna meet you." And he told me, I went down, he was too busy to talk, and I'm following around. He was the director down at Indian Steps Museum, and he was too busy that day, and I had to follow him around. He's talking and talking, and but when we go out, we still look for Slate Tavern on the Lancaster side. So that's how I got involved in it. But believe it or not, I learned from Benton and from Dennis. Share your information. If you share your information, you get a ton of information back. And we do it on Facebook, and we get a ton of stuff back. I put something on about, we went down and looked for Rock 3 this week. We weren't successful with it. Water was too high. But we did find a hotel, and I said something, I mentioned something, and some young fellow from that area said, did you see the foundation down below there, Father? So that means we gotta put the boat back in, and go look for that foundation down, measure it, look at it. Any other questions?
Yeah, you guys have, been doing a lot of research and archives and stuff, and this is something I know about, but I haven't researched. Do you guys have any information on how it is that the Susquehanna Tidewater Canal got leased by, which meant taken over by, the Reading Railroad? What was the interest and, any details you might?
What I think it was, from day one, even before they built the thing, they were hemorrhaging money. They couldn't sell enough stock to build it. It got so bad in the first 2 years, the canal company was issuing scrip. They paid their bills with scrip. Pennsylvania passed a law that they had to accept the scrip back for payment. They were writing scrip, and then somebody wanted to pay them, they wouldn't take their scrip. So Pennsylvania passed a law, said you pass it, you gotta receive it. But they were hemorrhaging money all the time, and that canal, it only operates 9 months out of the year. That 9 months, they drain the whole thing, do all the repairs on it, and get ready to run, and a spring flood would hit, and cause a tremendous amount of damage, and then they have to go over and do more repairs, and get the thing ready to run. The Pennsylvania Canal wasn't running because they're doing repairs. So they were hemorrhaging money the whole time. When they leased the thing in 1872, they might have had in mind then, I can't find it, I've been looking for it, they might have had in mind to make it a railroad at that time. They leased it for 99 years.
Yeah, that's actually my theory. 'Cause
Yeah.
right at the end of the Civil War, the Columbia and Port Deposit Railroad was chartered. And if you look at the original list of board of directors members of that, every single one of them is either an attorney or an employee of the Pennsylvania Railroad. One of them was Samuel Ray. Samuel Ray is the guy who built rebuilt the main line of the Columbia Port, of the Philadelphia, Wilmington, Baltimore, built the Pennsylvania Station in New York, and dug the tunnels under the harbors, and built the Union Station in Washington, D.C., and he became president of the railroad after Alex Cassatt died in 1906 or 07. I have read that the Reading extended its line into Columbia in order to get Lehigh coal to the Susquehanna River. And that they have, because all the coal that was coming down the canal up until that point came down the river, which meant that it was coming down from the Wyoming Valley, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, and all those areas. And so the Reading Railroad's major source of income was the mines that it owned. And so they wanted a part of that southern market because the coal that came down the canal that didn't go to Philadelphia went south as far as Richmond and Savannah and the North Carolina coast by boat. And Reading wanted that market. And yeah, I think possibly they leased the canal in order to control the right-of-way, because the Reading and the B&O, the Reading and the Pennsylvania were just complete rivals. You don't go up to Steamtown in Scranton and say Pennsylvania Railroad, that's fighting words up there. That was very, the other thing is the South Improvement Corporation, which was the plot that the Reading Railroad was involved in, along with the New York Central Railroad, Andrew Carnegie, to build a competing railroad across the southern end of Pennsylvania to compete with the Pennsylvania Railroad, which had a monopoly on freight traffic from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. And they were doing that Well, Rockefeller was interested in it too. They wanted to break the Pennsylvania Railroad's monopoly. And of course, that wound up being undone, and the South Improvement Corporation, the South Pennsylvania Railroad, wound up being the right of way of the Pennsylvania Turnpike. So,
When they started this in 1836, they already had a railroad from Philadelphia to Columbia,
right.
Batesville to York, York to Baltimore. They built it too late. They
Yeah.
were competing against the railroad the whole time.
That's true.
And only operating 9 months out of the year. So I think it's fine.
Thank you, Jay.